You're listening to Artistic Finance, show 166. On today's show, we talk with lighting designer Asia M. Jackson. We discuss financial habits, living modestly, high-yield savings accounts, building a financial cushion before investing, and open sharing of finance details with colleagues. One housekeeping thing, and that is that we have a new website navigation. So if you ever want to get to the show notes quickly, you can visit artisticfinance.com/show number. So today's show is 166. To find the show, go to artisticfinance.com/166. In today's episode, I reference several past episodes, and you can reach them the same way. For episode 1, go to artisticfinance.com/1. And for show number 7, go to artisticfinance.com/7. Without further ado, let's get to the show.
You are listening to Artistic Finance, where we help creatives learn about the business of show business.
Welcome and thank you for listening. I'm your host, Ethan Steimel. We're recording this August 12th, 2024, and the latest news is, I don't know because I haven't been paying attention to the news, but the Olympics wrapped up.
There were some hard-hitting interviews on Sundays because we are deep in the election fever, so some VP interviews. But other than that, I think mostly the Olympics takes the day.
That's true. That's true. All right. So today I welcome lighting designer Asia M. Jackson, who you can hear back on episode 164, which is our deep dive into pay negotiations with a panel of amazing lighting designers. Asia is a lighting designer based in New York, but of course works in all the regions. Off-Broadway, she has lit a commercial jingle for Regina Comet and Rock and Roll Man. And also, Asia, you were the associate designer on Fat Ham on Broadway, which is of note because it was nominated for a Tony Award for Best Lighting. So I'm just saying, you have some street cred there.
It's all Mr. King street cred. It's all Mr. King.
All Mr. King. Well, all I'll say is Mr. King hasn't been on this podcast, and you are now. So, just kidding. So we've mentioned you're a lighting designer. What else should we know about you?
Well, I'm glad to lead with lighting. It does sort of build the scaffolding of my entire life. But I'm a staunch supporter of education. I've also taught at Boston University, the National Theater Institute, and my own job, career, and sort of how I live my life has been profoundly shaped by educators and my advisors. So I am here at the bed of gratitude for them. That is like something I really, really wanted everyone to know, is that we come from some place, and I'm so proud of where I came from.
That is awesome. When you say you've taught at Boston, are you from Boston?
I'm not from Boston. I'm a proud Midwesterner, but I have spent about a decade in Boston. So I spent a lot of time in Boston. So I would love to say I'm an honorary Bostonian. I got like my shape in Boston amongst all these like fringe theater artists that we get to work with. So I just spent a lot of time there.
Also, Asia, I just have to say that when I was asking you to be on the podcast, you said that you've been listening to Artistic Finance since the start. And that is just awesome and emotionally a lot for me because I think you're a rock star. And I was like so thrilled to hear that.
It really has. I mean, I remember it's like the first episode, you were like, how do you make money as an artist? And I said, that's such a good question. And how do we make money not taboo? I'm from the Midwest where you do not talk about certain things at the dinner table. And, money is one of them. You do not talk about it at all. So the fact that, especially it was like during the pandemic and we had all this listening time and the thought of money and career in arts was really, really front of mind. And then you came along and you're like, I want to talk about this thing. And I said, this is so great. I want to talk about this thing.
That's awesome. And also, like, now that we're out of the pandemic, looking back, it was one of those things that like everybody's like, oh, that's what you want to talk about is like this pause that we're having. And I like that was the one thing I didn't want to talk about. So I like spent 3 years like not talking about it. And now that I'm looking back, and also I just did this episode on theater work, which is about theater labor. And they talk about how many people left the industry during that time where we had all that listening time. It was a perfect time where a lot of people did make a decision. Am I going to leave and do something else or stick it out? And a lot of people left. And yeah, it stinks.
It's really hard. I think we lost a lot of really, really good people too. There are people I was working with and they left for IT, they left for
Yeah.
executive assisting, they left for any number of things that are extremely talented people.
And it was an age range. It was like it didn't matter what the age was. It was like young people left, which to me is logical, but a lot of mid-career and older
Totally.
people left, which is like older I have less not sympathy for, but it's like the circle of life, right? It's like if
Yeah,
you were
it's cyclical, totally.
if you were even in like a stone's throw of retirement age, whatever that is, I was like I'm at peace with it. But the like let's say 30 to 45, that age range, people left. And that was
Yeah,
the one
when
I was
it's
like,
like
ugh.
the game change. And that could be partly why it is that we lost so many people in that age group because it is so game changing in your career. Like what's going to happen in your late 20s, 30s, and 40s feel like, and that's just from my point of view, it feels like it can be pretty informative of what your later years is going to look like. So if you give
Yeah.
a chance to like change that vision, go for it. Kudos to them. I think it takes a lot of bravery to leave the industry.
Oh, 100%. Because like part of the reason I didn't leave is like I'm not brave enough.
Oh my gosh, Ethan, I don't know what would I do. Like I am a lighting designer. It came up a lot in the pandemic of how much your identity is tied to your work. And that's when I realized that I do have a really, really strong tie. I don't think that it informs my self-worth to myself, but in terms of how I identify going through the world, I'm very content going through the world saying I'm a lighting designer. And it was undesirable and scary to think about not doing that and not having that identity anymore.
Yeah. All right. Your creative
Okay.
personality here. What is
Okay.
a live event that you like to experience as an audience member?
Okay. I love all live events. I love people and being around people. I'm a person who loves people. But in terms of like particular live events that have really changed how I go to other live events, Beyonce, of course, I think her Renaissance tour was one of those like generational moments. And she spoke about that too. She really put in the effort to make that concert something that she wished she also got from an artist she admires and loves. So the fact that she's so aware and wants to give us something very particular, I think it's beautiful. Like she goes into it not like, oh, well, let's see what magic happens. She's like, no, I would like the magic to be had here, and I would like magic to be had here. And so I just love that event. I loved it so much. I flew halfway across the country to see it again. So I got to see it twice, which was an utter blessing. And I love like immersive theater. Not theater that makes me do the acting, but theater that lets me participate in like walking around and trying like eating something or trying to solve like a riddle. I don't like the call up on stage style
Hmm.
per se. I'm not going to avoid it. Um, but that sort of like audience participatory world, I really, really love. I think that's really, really exciting.
That's amazing. That's awesome. Also, the Renaissance tour. I'm not always up on my pop culture, but I did like an exercise. I assigned like lighting designers for students to research last year, and one of them had the designer. Oh my gosh, I can't remember their name. Shame on me.
Tobias, Tobias,
Oh,
the Beyonce's lighting designer.
yeah,
Yeah,
you aced it. Okay.
I'm just obsessed.
That's you're like I was looking at the light console. Yeah. Um,
Yep.
yeah, but anyway, but they in their presentation they showed a bunch of photos and I was like, what is this tour? Like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I wish I should have gone and seen this thing.
Oh my God. You know, it's really on us. The Beehive, we should have sent you an email, a notification, a DM. So that's on us, and we'll take accountability and it won't happen
That's amazing. That is awesome. All
again.
right. Your financial personality, are you good or bad with money?
I know you ask this question every time too. For a long time, I'm like, oh, I'm pretty good at money. But when I was growing up, I thought I was pretty bad at money. And I've actually decided that I'm just like pretty neutral. If you would like a neutral party to rest your funds, you can rest them with me. They will go nowhere. They won't do anything crazy. You can count on them to be there. They will be in their certain allocated budget lines. But there's not like a ton of excitement happening here. I suppose I qualify good is that you are so good with money that your money makes money, and bad means you lose money, which is why I say I'm quite neutral.
That is an awesome answer. That's hilarious. Um,
You know, I receive it. I put this into the savings. I put this into the bills. I put this over here. It's very tidy.
Sounds good to me.
It's very nice.
All right, so I'm going to get to a bunch of questions, but before we
Hmm.
even get there, I want to follow up on something that you said back in episode 164. It was just very briefly, and you mentioned that your agent has brought you in a couple of contracts. Did I hear that
Hmm.
correctly?
Yeah, so I am so fortunate to have a really, really generous and beautiful agent. Most of the work that she helps me with and that I do, it does come from myself specifically. And I really want to clarify majority of it. However, I do think it's quite notable how many projects she has sent into my email. She has really, really tries to listen to what her clients, and I know specifically me, what goals we have and who we want to work with and the kinds of shows we want to do. And she's a dramaturg by like trade. And so has a lot of experience just dealing with narrative and then more narrative based people. So if an opportunity comes up, she will throw my name in the hat. I think I've this year, so we're in August now. She might have sent through probably four projects this year. And I haven't done, that some I do and some I don't do, but it's really, really fortunate, I think, to have somebody who like is in your court. And if they're in the room and they're like, oh, this person just said they need a lighting designer, and I represent a lighting designer who would love to do this musical, like she will go out of her way and make the connection and set up the interview, get me the script. I'm so, so fortunate for her.
I think that's great. And I just wanted to point it out because like Isabella had also mentioned her agent has gotten
Hmm.
her some contracts. I know Peter Kazarowski was episode one. He mentioned that like through the years his agent has also gotten him a couple contracts. And I just want to bring it
Hmm.
up because everybody always says, "Oh, my agent doesn't get me work." And for designers,
Yeah, I've
agents don't get
always
work.
thought about that. Everyone says it. They're like, my agent doesn't give me work, my agent doesn't give me work. And like totally, these are no disses. These are no disses. It's just I was shocked because from the get-go, my agent was like, what do you want to do? Who do you want to work with? I will do what I can to help facilitate that. Like your career is your own and you have to make that. But I'm here to help you because the more work I get, the more work she gets. And she knows that. And especially the more satisfying work I get, and then I'm going to work with that team again, the more work she's going to get. So
Right.
she has like a incentive to do it, but she doesn't also have to. So I just encourage everyone to, find someone who's going to play in your court.
And because also I used to think about joining the union. This was something that came up in that
Yeah.
episode, which is I used to think like join the union when you're ready. When you're like, I'm professional enough now, join. And now I have the opposite opinion. Well, it's just a different
Hmm.
opinion that like everybody, if you're going to do this career, like just join the union as soon as
Yeah.
possible. It's not really about like, are you good enough anymore?
Totally. No, I agree. And I was on the same boat where I was of the opinion that it should only be when you need to. I joined it when I started working off Broadway. That was like right when I joined. But now, and actually, like quite specifically, if you are doing this work, you should be in our union. Period. I used to think it was like a not it, like we get a stamp, and I love my stamp. You get I used to think it was like a stamp of approval. Like you are good enough to do this work. We will now let you into this union. But that's also not the kind of union we have. It is not an adjudicated union where you get voted, what you are voted on, but based on your artistic skills. We have jobs to do, and it is a craft and a trade and an artistic discipline. But we are not the arbiters of what is good or bad. We just need to know if you can do a section, make
Yeah.
sure you could do these certain things. But I really, really feel, and probably even more leniently than most people, if you are doing this work, you should be in our union, period.
Yeah. And I'll even go, just because you mentioned a section, I'm like, the people younger than me are all drafting in 3D. It's like if you're doing that,
That's
that's just
true.
like you're already doing a section. Like, so what's
You're
the
already doing a
section?
section. And then there's so much paperwork, and we can get into this maybe not on another podcast, but I am one of the chairs for the lighting design committee on 829. And we did an excursion to figure out what the different union exams were, and we discovered that there are differences in union exams, which just further pushes me towards the opinion that if you're doing this work, you should be in the union, period. Because a
Yeah.
shop order to the Eastern region is not as necessary or the same thing in the Central region, but it's a part of the union exam. So it's interesting that's quite a pillar, yet not recognized across the entire kin in the same way. So just in terms of equity, I think we should
Yes,
balance it out a little bit.
I agree. I agree for several reasons. And you're right. It's for a different episode of this podcast.
Yeah.
But,
Sorry,
but
different
like,
episode.
but Heather Gilbert is on the central committee, and that's how we
Oh
determine
yeah.
because their opinion is sort of like if you're doing the work, you're doing the work. So like we don't need to sit and have you come in for an hour and like we would like that option
Well,
too. Like if we need to
well,
clarify
love
some
it. It
things,
sounds
but
great. I don't want to end the exam or anything. I just, if you're doing the work, you should be in the union.
I'm with you. I'm with you. Yeah, okay. I just wanted to clarify that point about agents because
Hmm.
there's certain things in the industry that you just hear over and over again, and it like becomes truth, and everyone's like, "Oh, that's how it is." And one of those things
Hmm.
is you don't get work from your agent, and yet everybody I know that has an agent, I don't, has said to me at some point, "Oh yeah, my agent got me this job," and I'm like, "Well, everybody's
Yes.
saying they don't, but everybody's also saying that they do." So.
Get yourself one, Ethan. They're
Oh,
wonderful.
yes. Thank you for bringing that full circle. That's why I brought up the union thing because my view on agent has changed. Where again, I used to think like, oh, like Isabella said, and other people have said, like,
Hmm.
when it's time, when you need an agent, get an agent. I agree with that wholeheartedly. But also, I think you can put yourself in a place. So, like, if you want an agent, if you're thinking you even want one,
Hmm.
like, go get one because there's agents of
Go
all
get one.
types and just grab one, partner up with somebody.
Yep. Do it. And I think it really works when there's some sort of like connection point. So, reach out to your friend's agent, have them and just invite them to come see one of your shows, or invite a few agents you haven't met, or somebody who's representing this other person. Always keep in mind that people have different ledgers and different amounts of time. So sometimes they're not able to bring you on as their client just because they're not taking any new clients. It's not all a reflection of the work that that the person is doing, but like put yourself out there, and
I
I
agree.
think it's pretty worth it.
Yeah. All right. Another follow up from that episode. You had mentioned that you made a spreadsheet breaking down like hours worked and sent it to a theater company for a job that you turned down eventually because it wasn't
I
financially
did.
viable. Can you just refresh that story? And then I'm curious if you've ever done that again or if you've sort of kept up with that practice or
Hmm.
monitored things for yourself.
So to get to the story was right after I had graduated from Boston University. I was reached out to by a local Boston company to do like a series of plays or like a plays and rep. It was like a summer thing. They had sent the rates, and I was just like a little bit surprised about the rate. So, I think it is not as effective to just say, no, this is too low, I'm not doing it. Because if they were going to send that email to me, they're going to send it to at least five other people at the time. And I sent a breakdown hourly of what they were offering so that they could get perspective about the job. It turns out after I did the hourly breakdown, which is very generous in their view, because we all know that tech hours are not what is on the schedule. But I only listed the hours that were on the schedule, and it broke down to $1.12 an hour. And I then told them that it was too low to do and suggested a higher rate, or if they wanted to do this to see if they can like partner up with the university to get some university credit or get a student who is also doing work study or something to do this gig. Which I was a little bit nervous about doing with one of the first like offers out of grad school, but it is shocking how much people want to pay. I had just spent all this money getting my master's degree in this, and we had just received exit counseling, which this university does when you graduate to make sure that you understand your student loans and things like that. And my student loan counselor said that I needed to be making $75,000 a year right out of grad school. So the money, like it was very front of mind. And I said, okay, well, if I'm going to do this, I need to like try. And
Yeah.
taking that kind of job would just not even be trying.
I love it. And I love that you did that. I mean, I assume that organization still exists, and I assume they do probably a similar fee still. And I do see it from their
Mhm.
perspective too, because it's like,
Totally. They're just trying to do some work.
yeah, it's like theater is like it's an institution, and it's how do you break these practices without closing your doors? Like, like
Hmm.
that's what always where my mind jumps. It's like I try to find a solution, and then I'm like, we all just need to close up shop. There's so many theaters, we just need to close
Yes.
up.
Well, sometimes it's like what I was hoping this company would do is partner, like find a donor who can pay for that person's salary. You can link up with especially in Boston, you can link up with an institution to help cut some of your venue costs. You can do fundraisers. Like the rate that they were offering it was so shocking because it was as if they had never considered what the breakdown was. And you have to do it. Because like we said this in the previous episode of pay negotiations, talking about general managers, like they're real people. And it turns out the people who email you about jobs are real people on the other side. And there are times where even depending on like who is sending it out from general management, production director, artistic director, associate artistic directors, office managers, sometimes like it has gone through so many people without even really looking at it. So you might be responding to the office assistant and
Yeah.
just saying like this pay rate's too low. Oh, no problem. Then they're gonna just go to the next person, send it off and see what they say. So it was just like the clearest way and hopefully the only way that I saw them raising a rate immediately. Because it's hard to get people to spend more money.
Yeah, it really is. But episode coming up, well, I guess when this is released, it will already be out. But the one about theater work, there was an actionable item, which is people that are donors or giving to theaters can try to earmark their money for labor over things.
Totally.
And so that's like my new thing is like, how do we stress, sustainability for the people versus
Hmm.
like more scenery or more newer show or something like that.
Oh, it's so easy to do. So I am the board chair at Brighter Boston, and we pay and train teenagers in event production, carpentry, lighting, sound, video. We're doing stage management now. We're really trying to just be another option, another training option that allows students to not give up on a part-time job, right? Because some of our students, their income at Taco Bell, at the gas station, or whatever is contributing to household income. A lot of training programs are not paid. So in order to get training, you have to give up on pay. And that's a huge part of why our industry looks the way it does. With this program, we can facilitate this training. They can still take home a paycheck and we pay them a very good rate. that allow them to get this training and then they can go off into the industry. So they can go, we've had some of our alumni join the local 11, which is really exciting, go to school or go right into freelancing. I bring that up because donors have so much power over the money they give us. So if they tell us they want the money to go to labor, we will make sure it goes to labor because that's what the donor wants. The donor gets it. We have quite a reason to want to hold on to somebody who is doing that kind of donation for our organization. So you have so much power when you're willing to share your money. You have so much power with where the money goes.
Yeah. And also when theater is involved, it's usually not that much money can be powerful.
Oh my gosh, you don't really, it's like $1,000, which is not nothing, it's really not nothing, but it is attainable for a large group of people to donate
Yeah.
$1,000.
I love it. All right, Asia, now the questions that I've asked probably 100 designers. I should count how many lighting designers I've talked to. Like I say, I talked to all designers, but I can't remember the last time somebody wasn't a lighting designer.
We're just lighting designers. We love to talk. We love to talk about this stuff. So it's just in our nature. What are we to do?
All right, so going back before your career, growing up apparently in the Midwest,
Mhm.
did you have a good financial example?
I did not. And I know my parents will never listen to this podcast, but they are great parents. But we just did not have good financial examples. So there was a point in time where myself, my brother, my parents, all of us, we were on welfare for a while. It was always really, really tight. And I moved around between my mother and my dad every year, all the way up into high school. So it was really these like childhood years. I remember having quite a deep and profound understanding about how expensive kids were because my parents would tell us, they would say, like, we can't afford to have you guys. So you're going to go live with your dad or you're going to go live with your mom, which is, I think, I had a hard time digesting as a kid. But I am so grateful because they did tell us the adult answer. It wasn't like a cloak and mirrors kinds of things. They weren't trying to hold one over on us. It was like, I cannot do this. So this is what we're going to do. So being resourceful and being highly aware that you have to be careful because you need to make sure you have a place to sleep. You need to make sure you have a place to go, and you need to make sure you can keep that going. So that was really informative and probably why I really effort to have as tidy finances as I do now. It's just really understanding like what volatility feels like.
Doesn't feel good.
Yeah. Do
Um,
not recommend.
yeah, of course. Just because we mentioned Midwest and I grew up in a suburb of St. Louis, where in the Midwest did you grow up?
Nebraska.
Nebraska,
Yes,
amazing.
Bellevue and Omaha, Nebraska, go Big Red.
I did a summer stock in Missouri this summer. One of the directors and the set designer were both from Nebraska, and I was like, I
Oh my
can't believe there's
goodness.
theater people that are in Nebraska.
First of all, I went to the Johnny Carson School of Theater and Film. There is most definitely theater, film, dance, everything in Nebraska. It's actually shocking when you learn how many people you know from Nebraska.
Everybody listening is
Yeah.
gonna be like, type Nebraska into Facebook or something and be like, who pops up?
Oh
Oh my
my
gosh.
gosh. I'm just like, and shouting out UNL, truly, Susan Levine Oranda at the dance department, outstanding. Now retired, but Laurel Shoemaker, really outstanding. Steve Greer, who was a technical director, really just incredible educators
I love
from
it.
there.
So now at the start of your career, since we learned about before that, right when you started, what did your finances look like?
I'll have us start when I first moved to New York in 2013 after I graduated from undergrad. I moved to New York with, I think, maybe 4,000 or $5,000 in savings. Was doing like couch surfing. I stayed with my best friend on her couch for a while, and then I like do you remember Gypsy Housing? Is that still a thing?
It's still a thing.
Whoa, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
I haven't checked it out in a while, but I was always referencing, like referring people to it all the time.
All the
So,
time. This is not a plug for it, but alas, this is how I found my housing
but just so
through
people know
Gypsy
what it
Housing.
is, at least on Facebook is where I see it, right? So there's
Yeah.
Facebook groups and called like Gypsy Housing of Manhattan or Brooklyn or Inwood or wherever in New York you're sort of looking, just various, a Wild West,
hmm
let's say, place of finding a roommate.
There were a couple filters. So I think part of why it's called Gypsy Housing is because it is for artists who move around a lot, is what they were attempting at referencing for the title of the group. So I stayed with a dancer there and worked and freelanced around the city, but it was pretty tight. I remember thinking whenever I got like a paycheck, I would take like just a tiny little bit out and that'd be like the spending money, and then everything else needed to go to housing or food or bills or something like that. It was very, very tight, but it was certainly not unmanageable. I did pay for myself to go to school. That's something I've in listening to artistic finance. I am so impressed by how many people have had their schools paid for them by family, and it's been a lot of family help and sometimes by scholarship help. But even though I had a full ride scholarship to UNL, it did not cover housing or food or some of the fees that you still have to pay. It just is a full tuition and book scholarship. So there are a lot of like the undefined things that went into like having like a small but notable amount of student loans when I went to New York. So I started paying those right away when I moved. So it was tight, but not discouraging.
Nice. I love it. Yeah, and also the schooling, I also paid for my schooling and
Yeah.
but I had a tuition, like I got a tuition thing in the state of Missouri,
hmm
but it didn't cover books. But I remember the housing and you were required to live on campus, right?
You're required to.
But I remember I wrote the check for the first half of it, and I think it was at the time $3,500. And I wrote this check, and I was like, it was like a majority of my savings.
Absolutely. That was like
And
all of my
I'm
savings.
like, two thoughts were one is I have to like now get this amount of money again, like, but in a
That's
shorter
right.
time period, because like I've had up until 18 to do this. Now I have a shorter time period in which to
I got to
get
give her next
more.
semester.
And then also, this is the biggest
Totally.
check I've ever written. It was like
Oh
at
yeah.
that time, it was like, oh my gosh, yeah. But good for you,
Oh
Asia,
yeah.
man.
Yeah. It's good to go. It is part of why I'm such a like advocate for education. You can really change your circumstance by going to school. Whatever way you need to do it, it's a great option for a lot of people to consider.
All right, so today, do you think or worry about money on a daily basis?
No, I do think about it on a regular basis, but I often don't worry about it, mostly because of my habits. So I do have a nest egg. I have like a cushion. I have high yield savings account. So I have all of these like they're like a big old comforter of me, which is really nice. And I have like target goals that I try to reach when I'm like attempting as much as we can. You know how it goes, especially for lighting designers, plan out what the season is going to be, budget that accordingly. Frequently unworried, but frequently think about it.
I love it. And also, I just want to point out what you said. You said you have a high yield savings account. So I didn't open one of those up until last year, which is like, I'm so embarrassed. Like, I have artistic finance and I didn't do
Hey, this
it.
happens. What are you
But
gonna? It happened. You did it.
But if anybody's listening, this is like, I implore you, if you have your money in like Bank of America or Chase or something not earning any interest,
Just do
just
it.
right now, just stop listening to this episode. Like we love
So
for
you
you to keep
pause.
listening, but you
hmm
pause. You can return later, but just go look up high yield savings account. It almost doesn't matter which one.
It doesn't
Um,
matter which one.
and just take like the 5 minutes. Don't start listening to this again until you open one up. Open it up. It takes 5 minutes. Set up the
hmm
transfer. Like you can keep your all banking that you currently have in
Keep
place
all of it.
intact. Save it. but just open up and move some money into a high yields account. And then in like a
Hmm.
month, you'll be like, whoa, did I just make interest on that? Like,
Yes.
whoa. I need to put all my money over there.
And you can still
Um,
like, especially I know people who really want to just be able to see all their numbers. You just open up another tab. It's so easy. It's truly one of the easiest possible things you can do to help give yourself a little more cushion.
yeah, it's like, oh, I want to call it free money, but it's not because it's your money. And I'm sure they're making more
Yeah,
money. But,
they are making more money, but if
but
it's sitting there anyway.
yeah, but yeah, exactly. That's the beauty of it is it's sitting there not doing anything. It's not invested in the market. Like it can't go to zero if there's like
Hmm.
a 1930 ever again. And it's like,
Hmm.
so it's if it's not doing anything, like just let it not do anything, but in a better way.
But over there, yeah, you're just moving it to a different bookcase, right? It's still in the apartment in a separate bookcase.
Amazing. All right. So you mentioned having some student loans, I believe, when you first
Hmm.
got to New York. At this point in your life, do you have any debts at all?
Only student loans. And that is so on purpose. I suppose I do currently have a couple $1,000s still on my car loan. I could just pay it all off entirely, because I have no penalty on an early prepayment, but it fits in the finances nicely. It fits in my budgeting nicely. So I'm going to like keep it quite steady. And it allows me to put the money that I want in my high yield savings account, my regular savings account. And we just moved. All that to say, I do have an auto loan, but I love my car. I will do we all decide things that you're willing to spend money on, and mine is my car, my vehicle. I am from Nebraska. And even though I live in the city, I will never get rid of my car.
That's amazing. That is awesome. When you said car, I was like, wait, New York City in a car? Wow,
Yeah.
cool.
You budget for the life you want. I'll give up an extra trip. Truly, I'll give up an extra trip every year to have my car, to have that freedom, to be able to drive down to my mom's house for Christmas and be able to drive back up. Absolutely.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so you've hinted at this a little bit before when you were saying you got a paycheck in and you would put a little money here for spending
Mhm.
and then the bills. Have you ever used a budget?
Yes, I definitely use a budget. I really got into like more sustainable budgeting and like sustainable meaning that I can do it more than one time and that I get it. I get what these numbers are doing. That really started for me during the pandemic. Just really trying to figure out finances, turn onto your podcast. And because, the pandemic started and I had just I've been out of school for maybe a year and the pandemic started and an entire calendar of projects just wiped. So you're just getting out of grad school, you're in that first year out of your income, and then the pandemic hit and every single one of my contracts got canceled. So that was when like the worry factor, that was an everyday worry. And that's when budgeting started. And it's so easy to do. If you haven't started a budget, you guys, you just find me on Instagram. I'll send you an Excel template and you just get started. But it lets me see targets. Need to look for a contract that is in this ballpark, or I can take a couple of these small contracts that are in this ballpark. The budget helps me plan for what it is I actually want to be doing.
That's interesting. Okay, I want to see your breakdown because yeah, you're doing it like the only way we can, really. You're saying this is like my monthly expenses, or these are my expenses. So this is how
Yep.
much money I need to make. So now I have to go find the work that pays that.
Yep. Some jobs you're like, hey, I don't know yet, or oh, this smaller job is coming up. And smaller just means monetarily smaller, not like the passion or the theater stuff about it. It just means it's a smaller paycheck. That I can take this smaller paycheck because I have a very large project coming up. Or I cannot take this smaller job because I actually need two medium jobs in order to make my year.
I love that. All right, what is the best financial thing that you've done that you think that other people could learn from or replicate?
This one doesn't count, but it is something to just be restated, is open a high yield savings account. Um, but I think the best thing I have done is to be very, very particular about credit cards. They are so easy to use, especially when you're in tech all the time and you're eating out all the time and you're traveling a bunch. That's when it can really start to get very easy to use a credit card. But never carrying a balance on the credit card. You pay it off every single month. And not only does it help you save money on paying additional fees and interest, but it also really helps your credit score, which really helps you get apartments and really lets you get a lower payment on your car that you want and can't give up. So I really am motivated by it, keeping a really good credit score, because there's all these smaller things that it affects. It's like a poor tax. Like when you have a low credit score, you are more likely to have higher bills. And then it just is like such a cycle to keep you in making no money. And for in full transparency, that was a learning moment. I learned that credit cards were really bad. I was 19 and I got a credit card and I was like, I totally get it. You just pay this off and then it's no problem. And I think I got like the do you remember the Sex in the City? Like, it's like a pink book and had like all the seasons DVDs in it. It was the coolest thing at the time that I had this credit card. Well, I got it and a couple other things. And then I ended up paying like 9 times the amount for that DVD set because I did not understand the minimum payment versus full payment versus penalty versus if you move, make sure you change your address so you can still get your bill. It was like it was a big learning moment about how untidy I was when I was 18, 19, and just being tidier with your credit, of course, organizing your bills and making sure you know where the money is supposed to be going makes it so you can save a lot of money.
I love that. One, because the credit card thing is something that has come up. Like, it was something when I started this. I've never kept a balance on a card. And when I
Mm-hmm.
started talking with people, that was like the word of caution was like, don't keep a balance, don't keep a balance. And I was like, oh,
Don't do it.
this is this horrible, horrible thing. Yeah.
It's horrible. Oh my gosh, like 25% interest. It's crazy.
It is crazy. I also love the other part of that story about the DVD collection set because that's like a
Always one
snapshot in
thing.
time.
Oh, totally. Oh my goodness. And it would never happen now, right? But well, I say that, but
Something else. Yeah,
it
yeah.
was something I remember I was like, oh, I can't get this, but I can with a credit card.
That's amazing. All right. What is the worst financial thing that you've ever done that people
I
should not
bought
do?
the DVD collection for Sex in the City. Ah, but truly overall it's just living outside of your means. And it's really tough to do. It's really tough to not be able to participate fully in the way that you want to. You do have to, make certain sacrifices, but living within your means will allow you to sustain your life longer and allow you to pursue your dreams easier because you don't need to worry about, oh, actually, I need to find this separate side hustle in order to make enough money to sustain this lifestyle. There's a certain amount of, if you can keep it quite tidy and quite tight for a while, it allows you to really focus on what it is you are pursuing. And then you can add on goals from there and then like sort of bloom out as opposed to try to gather it all in.
Yeah.
So really take stock of what you have. What you have is enough and live within it. And if
Yeah.
you cannot do that, that's when you need to start setting some goals.
I love it. I also, this is the episode where I just refer to every other episode. Episode 3 with Jill Twiss. She talked about how she
Mm-hmm.
made like $15,000 to her first, like, maybe not decade in New York, but like certainly her
Mm-hmm.
thing. And she was like, but here's the thing, if you live modestly, like, and below your means, like, you can actually survive on like very little money.
You can. You
So
can.
I think that's like a really important part is like, I don't want to say like, don't be dumb, but like, because that's like
Well,
totally
it's
not fair to say, but it's
well,
like,
no, and it's so smart to like want to be in there and to want to participate in that way. I mean, there's a lot of networking that happens in social settings that do help if you have some income to be able to spare. But do not put a whole round of drinks on your credit card so you can get in that room to be able to do that networking.
Yeah. All right. So now let's talk about you getting work now, or actually,
Mhm.
wait a long time ago. How did you get your first job?
In the city. Well, the first job in the city was as an electrician at the public theater. Well, we were working on Fun Home. Oh, it was really fun. I got that job because I had worked at the Santa Fe Opera, and Meredith, who is now in North Carolina, that she was like the hiring person in the lighting office at the public. And she convinced the supervisor to like bring me in for like 2 weeks, just to, like see how I would do sight unseen. So I came to New York with 2 weeks of work, and I was like, I'm gonna do it. It's totally gonna work. And a lot of it is like you just have to be here. You just have to be doing the thing to get more of the thing. So I came and did that. But my first design gig, that was prior. So at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, the design department is a little bit smaller. So there's like maybe two lighting designers per year for the undergraduates, and maybe like seven design and production graduates per year. So if you want to, you can be pretty busy and like make some name for yourself. But I was in the School of Theater and I was dancing. I was a double major as a dance performer in the School of Music. And one of the actors was also taking a class over in the School of Music just for like fun and was doing Hamlet in the Haymarket. And he was like, "Hey, don't you go to our school? Like, aren't you in the theater?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm in the theater," because I don't know. I just wasn't super chatty with the actors, I guess. And he's like, "Oh my gosh, awesome." So we did this like dance concert. It's called the Student Dance Project, where student lighting designers work with student choreographers and they do all this. It's very fun and exciting. Well, he does one and then he's like, "Well, Asia, could you come light my piece, Hamlet, like you would light a dance?" And that was my first like excursion to like for profit. It was a non for profit, but I made a
Hmm.
profit lighting design. It was really exciting. So that was like my first like coming in as a lighting designer, like reached out to by the director for a vision that they had. And it was so fun. It's quite a bug, as you know.
Well, that also just echoes what you said is like you have to be doing the thing to keep doing the thing.
Yeah. Stay in the room.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to ask, how did you get your latest job? But I imagine you have multiple things going on, so maybe just pick one or a couple.
There's a lot. Okay, so well, the one I'm working on that is like really exciting is I am taking on Bradley King's original lighting design for Hadestown, and I am
Hmm.
going to put it up with the second national tour. So
Awesome.
it's really fun. So like I get to recreate a light plot. It's interesting, right? We have this known entity, this original work that was done by the Broadway team. And now we are tasked with re-envisioning it in this way where it can fit in the second national. So I'm revisiting a lot of pieces and parts in the show. There are some key things that we just cannot afford, or, just like in the time is also different, right? So your load in times are different on the second national, your crew sizes are a little bit different. So we're just taking this and reworking it. And I got it because I've been an associate and assistant for Bradley. We've done like 5 or 6 shows together. So this will be my first one that like taking something of his and then reinterpreting it as me, which will be pretty fun. And me insofar as that we are really efforting to hold on to what makes Hades sound magical. But it is a task to take something that is so known and just do it differently.
And when you say do it differently, I'm in my brain, I'm like, it's the second national, so like you're supposed to be doing the thing, right? Like you're
You're supposed to be
like
doing the
everybody wants,
thing.
yeah, everyone wants to see those
Hmm.
same cues, right? So from the audience perspective, right, if they don't know the show super well, they would
Hmm.
think like, oh, this was what was on Broadway, right?
Yes, that's our goal. And I say different because, I know like our legs are different, our scenery is different, the cast is different, the how the set moves is different. The list of
Yeah.
differences is long, but the goal is that here we are bringing out Hadestown on a second national, which allows other people to have access to this show, which
I
is
love it.
so fun. Like especially like they won't go to a lot of to any of the A houses. So hopefully some people who didn't get Hadestown the first time around will be able to get Hadestown this time around and have another like spark of the way down.
Amazing. All right, which job of yours has been the best compensated?
The most compensation I've gotten from a job was a corporate job. I am so lucky to get to work with some incredible corporate lighting designers and be able to light some things. There's a few NDA projects, but a lot of it has been with Microsoft. Working with Fabian Yeager is just a delight. I think his team is sensational. All the designers that he brings in are really good people, but they're also really good at what they do. And the compensation for that is definitely the most lucrative. And that can be anywhere between like 750 a day to 950 a day.
Awesome. Do you have an entity or a corporation, or is it just you, Asia Jackson, doing all this work?
Just me. I'll probably stay myself just self-employed until I have a need to bring on employees. And then I might reevaluate. For now, I'll just keep it as simple as possible.
Love it. W-2 versus 1099 income. What
Hmm.
percentage of it are you usually getting? Asia, last question for you. Where can people connect with you, and who do you want to connect with you?
Well, the connecting with me, you can find me on Asia M. Jackson on my Instagram. I'm there all the time. It's devastating. Or you can also email me. You know my Instagram handle, you know my name, you know my email. They're all Asia M. Jackson. Provided, I suppose, only kind inquiries only. But truly, if anyone has questions about being in the theater, being in this position, being able to have had a little experience teaching, been doing off-Broadway shows, assisting on Broadway, and doing a couple of these things, I feel like I have a lot of pools that I have like taken a dip into. So if anyone has questions about what it's like to start those things or questions around getting into the industry, particularly when you feel like your finances aren't there. I know I really struggled with that. Being able to know where to look for the opportunities that met me where I was and that I was able to succeed in. So I suppose like inquiries around that. I really, really want more people in this industry. I think the people here are great. I am so honored to work with people like you, Ethan, to be in this like industry with a number of people that I just absolutely adore. And if we can open up that door to get more people in, I would love to hold it open. So please, please do reach out. And then if people want to hire me, you can reach out as well. I do lights. I really,
Um,
really love it. And you can send all job inquiries to my email.
Amazing. I love that. All right, Asia, this has been fantastic. I loved it, every minute of it. Thank you
So
for your
fun.
time.
Thank you, Ethan.
That's it for this week's episode. My takeaways are Asia seems so organized with financial habits and career logistics. I'm impressed, and I admire her even more than I did before. Now, something that might not come across in our chat because we were talking about life and career logistics is that Asia has an infectious energy about her. So when you get the chance to meet her or work with her, you'll understand what I mean. She's kind through and through, and I wish everybody in this industry would take some of Asia's habits. And then throw on a super organized lighting designer, and I'm doubly impressed. Now, living modestly, that's a repeating theme on this show. Asia's budgeting method of breaking down your bills and then using that as a base for going out and earning your money and saving is pretty brilliant. High yield savings accounts. If you don't have one and you didn't pause the interview to open one, here is yet another chance to do so. Pause me and go do it. So, dear listener, now while I want you to do whatever you want to with your life, and I support you in doing so, there are two things that I would love for you to do. One of those things is open a high yield savings account and put your spare money there. So that way you're at least getting a little bit back on your money. If you put in $1,000 into a high yield savings account today, in 1 month, you will have $4 additional dollars. Now, $4 isn't a lot, but at the end of this year, 2024, that will be $25. That is $25 that you got merely because you paused this episode and you went and opened a high yield savings account. Now, there is a string attached to this request for you to open that account, but I'll get into that in a bit. Building a financial cushion before investing. The rule of thumb from Asia's grandpa about waiting until you have $10,000 that you can live without before investing, it seems arbitrary, but it's an actionable number to work toward. And if you're thinking you've missed out by not investing, know that you're not alone. As Asia mentioned, not losing money and saving for security is just as valid. And back on episode 17 with actor and director Mishka Partipal, who arguably has done well financially, she also didn't invest. I'm just saying that to say keeping on top of your finances, even if it isn't fully optimized for returns, is the best way to be. And my final takeaway is the open sharing of financial details with colleagues. Asia mentioned director Rachel Chavkin's article in the New Yorker. It's not about finance, but Rachel does mention how important it is to discuss money. In the article, she mentions that she made $800,000 from Hadestown in its first year, and she wanted that information on the record because, according to her, nobody talks enough about money. So, good work, Rachel. You can find that article in the show notes at, you guessed it, artisticfinance.com/166. Those are my takeaways. That string I mentioned about high yield savings accounts. So, dear listener, the second thing I want you to do with your life, but this is only if you've opened a high yield savings account. If you open that account and you find that Asia and I were right and that you're now generating interest, I would love for you to become a patron of Artistic Finance in an amount less than the interest you're getting from the high yield savings account. This is, of course, optional and only if you're feeling generous, but in return for becoming a patron, you'll get early release of episodes. Some of our upcoming episodes are with Chicago-based lighting designer Heather Gilbert, and there's an episode discussing how drunk Shakespeare performers unionized while the show was running. And there's a bonus episode with Richard Winkler discussing assisting on a chorus line. Additionally, patrons also have access to bonus handouts like the ones that accompany our pay negotiations episode, which is tips and tricks on negotiating. So if you'd like access to those things, please join as a patron at patreon.com/artisticfinance. And another reason I'd like for you to join is because this show actually takes a lot of money to produce. There's heavy editing and a lot of time goes into coordinating everything. So if you're feeling like keeping this content going, I would appreciate the help at any level. There is one caveat, and that is if you're a student listening, all content is free. If you email me and you ask for it at artisticfinancepodcast@gmail.com. You can request access to anything beyond the Patreon paywall, and I'll share it with you directly. I've always shared anything that has been requested, so don't be bashful or polite. Just send a quick email. One last thing, I mentioned a live episode at LDI. We have been asked back this year, and we've committed to going. Sunday morning, December 8th, we will be having our invited audience live recording. If you can make it to Las Vegas at that time, I would absolutely love to see you there. The topic is financial independence for creatives. Okay, the dad joke to end today's episode is for our lighting designers, and I'm pretty proud of this one, an Ethan Steimel original. Why was it so easy to find this interview with Asia, where she was discussing open sharing of finances and pay transparency? Because we put it behind a well-lit scrim. That's it for today. Until next time, break a leg.
Thank you for listening to Artistic Finance, where we interview successful artists, leaders, and investors to help educate and inspire the creative community. To access our show notes and resources, go to artisticfinance.com. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Before making any decision, consult a professional. This show is copyrighted by Artistic Finance. Written permission must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting.